Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. Our first story of the day is by my on. Employer doesn't want me to waste 2 hours, they waste 40 instead. A number of years ago, I worked for a small, fairly local outsourcing company. I was assigned to work with a particularly high-profile client of theirs. The client's office was just around the corner from my employer, but my employer insisted that I remain within their own offices to work. So the client provided me with a laptop to use that connected to their network remotely. It's important to note that whilst the client were decent, my employer had a totally fear-based management culture. The managers wanted eyes on the employees at all times because they assumed people would slack off given half the chance. After almost a year of working there, I got a call from the client notifying me that my client-given laptop needed some critical updates, and I would have to bring it in so IT could apply the updates locally. All sounded very reasonable to me. I brought this to the attention of my manager and advised I would be out of the office for a while so I could take my laptop to the client site around the corner for critical updates. No bueno. My manager ignored everything about the critical updates part and focused instead on the out of our office for 2 hours part. They insisted that they knew I had a remote connection to the client's office, so any updates could be applied without me needing to leave and take my laptop anywhere. I got the impression they thought I was lying to get some free time off. I decided that this had the potential to teach my employer/the managers a great lesson about not trusting their own employees. So, like the model employee I was, I shrugged, "You know best, boss," and complied with their request, continuing to work as usual. Until the following morning, when I switched on my laptop and nothing would work. The machine refused to connect to the client's remote network. The various software applications I used for my job also wouldn't run due to the lack of connection. Error messages flashed up on every file I tried to access, warning that my credentials had been blocked. I was left holding a very expensive brick. My manager was livid when I explained I couldn't do any work. They clicked around on my laptop trying to fix it themselves, but there was no other solution to be had. They sent me around the corner to the client's office so I could hand in my laptop to IT. I took my time enjoying a coffee and breakfast in the client's on-site cafe, whilst IT worked on my laptop. But when I went to check on it after an hour, I believe the client IT manager's words were, "It's freaked." The critical update mentioned before was intended to repair something wrong with the way the remote connections worked. When my machine didn't get the update, it lost connection with the client's network and immediately locked me out of everything, effectively blacklisting my credentials. IT manager explained that they would have to build me an entirely new machine and set up new accounts, a process that would take about a week to ensure everything filtered through correctly and could be tested. The client was fine and understanding about it, but when I returned empty-handed to my employer's office, my manager got extremely snotty with me and insisted I still had to work somehow. I pointed out that I had no client laptop to work on, so instead of sending me home, they forced another employee to share her computer with me. For the next week, me and my colleague shared her computer 1 hour each at a time. As I had no access to any of my files, client data, etc., all I could do was the barest minimum of work, sending a few emails from my colleague's account. After a week, I got my new client laptop and things went back to normal. But the week of sharing meant my employer had lost around 40 hours of productivity from 2 employees. The shared pain of the experience with my colleague brought us closer together. And when my employer lost their contract with my client a few years later, she helped me get a new job with my employer's competitor. Do you guys think a bad experience in the past is what caused these managers to act this way where they felt they couldn't trust anybody with anything? Or do you think from the very start it's just because they're bad managers and should have trusted their people more? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. This next story is by Nuke Sarari. I can't drink on the floor? We'll see. A few years ago, I was working at the local grocery store while going to school. They had the ridiculous rule that employees couldn't have anything to drink on the floor. No soda or coffee, I could understand, but you weren't even allowed to have a bottle of water. Just imagine, A 6-hour shift with one 15-minute break on your feet, talking to customers and scanning their groceries the whole time with nothing to drink. On to the day in question. I worked the customer service desk, where line of sight was easily blocked from customers, and I often broke the rule having a bottle of water back there, until my store manager happened to see me taking a sip one day. He wrote me up. Big deal. I was going to my doctor a few days later for something unrelated. I asked her during the appointment if she'd write me a note saying I needed to hydrate during my work shift. She was understandably appalled that the store didn't let employees drink, so she gladly wrote me the note. I took it in and showed my store manager the next day. He said, of course I could drink. There wasn't anything against that in the rules. I just couldn't have the water on the floor. I had to leave it in the break room. I asked just to clarify, since my doctor's note said unrestricted hydration, that meant I was able to leave my post at any time to get a drink. He said yes. Well, okay then. I put my water in the break room and went down to my shift. 20 minutes or so, I got thirsty, so I called my floor manager over. I told her I needed her to cover the desk for a few minutes so I could go to get a drink, as the store manager said I was allowed to. She rolled her eyes, of course, but what could she do? I went, got my drink, and came back to work. Did that, I think, 3 times. I'm not a totally horrible person, so I didn't ask when we were insanely busy. The next time after that, though, she told me she had talked to the store manager, and he changed his mind. I was allowed to keep my water bottle at the service desk. This sounds to me A, inhumane, and B, not legal. I don't think it really matters what line of work you're in. I feel like there must be some kind of legal precedent that says that they must have some kind of access to drink or be allowed the ability to have a drink when they need to. Not only that, but just being able to have it close by and accessible, like they're sitting at a customer service desk, or you're sitting at a checkout counter. What's the problem with having a water bottle in the cubby or sitting on the floor next to your chair? Like, would a customer ever go, oh my god, they let their employees drink water here? I'm taking my business elsewhere. This next story is by Google M Yahoo 75. HVAC Job Connect the gas to the pool heater. Easy job. At the time, 10 plus years ago, I was a gas tech too, still learning, and it was my first employment in the field. So the owner told me to go to this house and do the above. Easy job, he just said hook it up. Okay. Off I go. My partner and I drive to the house. On the way, having never touched a pool heater, nor my partner having touched one, I got out the code book and quickly read the rules. We pull up, and the homeowner raises their garage door, and there's a massive box. We look at each other because there's no way we'd be able to move it. I look at the BTUs, and it's higher than what a G2 can work on. It would require someone with their Gas Tech 1. On the back wall is the original pool heater sitting on cinder blocks with a vent going up to the ceiling. The owner comes into the garage from the house. Having just read the code, there's 3 things wrong with the current installation already. No secure footing, no powered vent, and it can't be attached directly to the house. So I look at the piping. It goes out the back through the wall. In the backyard, there's really nice gradual decking that comes down from the house. Yep. The piping goes under the decking all the way around the house. It's a crawl space maybe 2 feet high. The piping's too small for the new unit and would require replacement with larger diameter. So I tell my partner, we can't do the job. He agrees and we tell the homeowner, we'll just have to go back to the shop. We drive back and the owner excitedly asks if we're done already. I explain the issue and how we can't do it. He suddenly raged out on me, swearing, telling me to do what I was told and to freak off. The manager overheard and talked to the owner and said he'd go take a look. So we drive back. The manager confirms everything I said. Also, he pointed out moving the pool heater would require digging up the current water piping and relocating all of it. Then he says to me that I'm absolutely right, but I went about it wrong. He's worked with the owner 20 years and never says no. He says I should have just hooked it up and left. Then a few weeks later, when the owners complain, the owner would know he's wrong. So the next morning, I go to work and the manager tells me there's no work for me. Yet my partner got switched to someone else. His family owned a business my employer did work for, and it happened again the next day. So I called an old friend and he got me into his place, and I started there the following week. So not only was it not an easy job, but this owner wanted you to disregard every kind of safety regulation and just regulation in general. OP wasn't just fortunate to get out of there and get another job somewhere else with their friend. They did the right thing getting out of there. I would never want to work in any kind of gas tech field for somebody that insists that you ignore all kinds of regulations and just do whatever anyways. You wouldn't really know if those regulations are there because those bad installations are more prone to error, or those bad installations are more prone to cause harm to human beings. I wouldn't want to chance it, that's for sure. Our next story is by Jenna Mines, Classic Sketchy Vacuum Salesman. I worked at a well-known vacuum company as an assistant manager for almost a year. The manager was a classic sketchy salesman, but he never totally crossed the line until the following story. I lived in a place with lots of forest fires in summer typically. We had a lady drop off her vac for diagnostics, but she called within days to explain her house is in the middle of an evacuated area, and she's much too busy to come get it. I told her this is totally fine, and of course we understand. My manager hadn't even finished diagnosing it to my knowledge. I immediately let him know the situation, not to mention it's kept in a record on his computers anyway, so he can check what needs doing. Cue another few days later, and a customer needs a specific hose for their vac. My manager proceeds to look in the back, finds the hose for the vac previously the lady left, and makes out like he's going to sell it. I went to him, took him in the back right away, and reminded him that she will be back, and then, what will we do? This is her property still and not ours. He of course ignores me and proceeds to cut the electrical components and sell the hose to the next customer. The next customer needed a hose, but didn't need the electrical component which was in the way for their vac. To my absolute glee, the original lady shows up literally the next day. Karma. I felt bad for her, but was very excited to see the drama ensue. She comes in looking for her vac. My manager acts like he doesn't know what she's talking about. She's screaming at him. I proceed to show them both the record on the computer. He still acts like he doesn't know. He then says he threw it out. A lie? So I say, let's go look in the bins together. They haven't taken them since she dropped it off. Needless to say, it was very satisfying seeing it all fall apart so perfectly. He had to compensate the lady with a whole new vacuum. I quit not long after. Weirdest freaking person I've ever worked for. And a total scammer. First of all, these must have been really good vacuums. So the fact that somebody would drop their vacuum off here and somebody would just chop shop it and sell parts is just disgusting to see somebody do. I'm glad OP had good morals and called them out on this all the way until they replaced the vacuum for the lady. Absolutely the right thing to do. And our final story of the day is by WB John. Okay, I'll be there at 8:30 every day. This happened several years ago. I worked for a company that provides software for cell phone companies. We made voicemail, SMS messaging, etc. There were smaller companies that didn't have the staff or data center to handle these products, so we had a group called hosting that connected to the customer's network and provided the service. I and my friend would usually come into work at about 10 a.m. and just stay until our work was done, usually 7 or 8 o'clock. We enjoyed our jobs and each other's company. We worked hard and were the backbone of the team. One day, the director calls us into his office and tells us that the business hours at this company are 8:30 a.m. until 5 p.m., and he expects us to arrive on time from this point on. While my friend was a bit frightened, I said, "Okay, that sounds great." The director asked what I meant, so I said, "If you're setting our work hours, that means no more unpaid overtime. You will see a cloud of dust swirling above my chair at 5:01 every day from now on." During our next staff meeting less than a week later, the director tells us that he's decided that our group will now have flexible hours because he trusts us to get our work done. Wait a minute. If I cut these people's time back, I won't have to pay them as much, and they can probably still keep up with the output. Oh, how many bad managers have had this idea? A lot of times you think that they should just think about it rationally. Like, take their job. You cut the hours back and still expect the same amount of output? Seems a bit unreasonable, doesn't it? But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So, until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.